A chilling premonition, a sudden twist of fate, beckoned me home that fateful Thursday. There, in the sanctuary I had painstakingly built for my beloved family, I discovered a scene that tore the very fabric of my existence. My wife of 16 years, Vivian, had transformed our marital bed into a sordid playground, a stage for her grotesque betrayal. She expected pleas, a desperate struggle, my humiliating crawl back into her orbit. Instead, with a quiet solemnity that belied the maelstrom within, I simply placed my wedding ring on the dresser, a silent declaration of the end, and walked away. I am Darius Whitmore, 48 years old, and for a lifetime, it seemed, I believed I held the world in my grasp. A beautiful wife, two extraordinary children, and a burgeoning real estate empire finally soaring after relentless years toiling in the trenches. Whitmore Development, my brainchild, was forged in the fires of Vivian's first pregnancy with Ashton. We began in a cramped two-bedroom flat, my days consumed by construction, my nights by the relentless pursuit of a contractor's license. Vivian, ever the unwavering pillar, would soothe my weary shoulders as I wrestled with building codes, her voice a gentle balm promising belief in my grand vision, transforming derelict warehouses into magnificent residential havens. Those nascent years were a crucible, yet we faced them as one. Then came Ashton, swiftly followed by Clementine 2 years later. Vivian, once a marketing coordinator, made the profound choice to become a stay-at-home mother, convinced that raising our children eclipsed any career aspiration. I not only respected her decision, I admired it. My own mother, a phantom of exhaustion, worked 3 jobs to keep us fed, and I yearned for a different legacy for my children. So I pushed harder, embraced longer hours, seized grander projects, and chased more audacious deals. Every late night in the office, every weekend meticulously scouting potential properties, every missed family dinner was a deliberate investment, a brick laid in the foundation of our future. I was building something immutable, a lasting heritage for Ashton and Clementine, college funds designed to unlock choices I had never possessed. The business truly ignited half a decade ago. I had unearthed my elusive niche, revitalizing archaic industrial structures in burgeoning districts. Artists, young professionals, empty nesters, all yearned for that authentic loft living experience. My projects began gracing the pages of local magazines, and the revenue, once a distant dream from those ramen noodle years, began to cascade in. It was then, subtly at first, that Vivian began to change. I failed to perceive it then. Her complaints began, hushed at first, about the confinement of home, the feeling of being a mere glorified housekeeper. Fair enough, I conceded. Managing a household and 2 volatile teenagers was no minor feat. When she suggested domestic help, I embraced the idea. Maria, our nanny, arrived 3 days a week, shouldering the after-school pickups and homework assistance. I genuinely believed this would liberate Vivian, gifting her the freedom to rediscover herself, and for a time it seemed to work. She frequented the gym, embraced yoga, even mused about a return to marketing. I championed it all. A contented wife, after all, made for a harmonious home. Yet a subtle discord resonated. The woman who once greeted me with an eager kiss, her eyes alight with interest in my day, grew distant, distracted. Hours vanished into her phone, the screen perpetually angled away when I drew near. New garments, exorbitant pieces more suited for a clandestine rendezvous than mundane errands, materialized in her wardrobe. I dismissed it, whispering anxieties away, attributing it to the sweet release of success, a newfound ease for us both. Vivian, after all, deserved these small luxuries after years of sacrifice. If she wished to cultivate herself, was that not a healthy pursuit? But the children, with their innocent, piercing gazes, noticed too, though their young voices initially remained silent. It was Clementine, my perceptive 13-year-old, who finally voiced the unspoken, though I was loath to hear it. She possessed Vivian's keen intellect, thankfully tempered by my stubborn resilience. "Dad, why does Mom get all dressed up just to go grocery shopping?" Clementine inquired one evening, her small frame perched on the kitchen counter, ostensibly immersed in homework, but her unease palpable. I, lost in the architectural intricacies of a new Brooklyn project, murmured, "What do you mean, sweetheart?" My mind wrestled with maximizing square footage while preserving the building's historic soul. "I mean, she puts on makeup and perfume just to buy milk and bread," Clementine pressed, "and she's gone for like 3 hours. How long does it take to shop for groceries?" That pierced the veil of my preoccupation. I lifted my gaze from the blueprints, truly seeing my daughter for what felt like the first time in weeks. Worry etched itself in her eyes, a burden too heavy for a child. "Maybe she's running other errands too," I offered, the words hollow, echoing my own nascent doubts. Ashton, 15, then drifted into the kitchen, reaching for a sports drink. My son, at an age where everything was either fine or whatever, had become unusually withdrawn of late. "She's not at the grocery store, Dad," Ashton stated, his voice flat, devoid of adolescent apathy. "I saw her car at that fancy gym across town when Tyler's mom dropped me off at practice yesterday. She was talking to some guy by the entrance." My stomach knotted, but I forced composure. "Son, your mother has every right to go to the gym and talk to people. She's been cooped up in this house for years taking care of you two." "I know that," Ashton countered, an unfamiliar edge to his tone. "But why does she lie about where she's going? Why doesn't she just say she's going to the gym?" I had no retort. The stark truth hit me. Consumed by my empire, I had ceased to track Vivian's daily movements. When she spoke of errands, I took her at her word. Why would I not? "Look, kids," I said, laying down my pen, granting them my undivided attention. "Your mother and I have been together for 16 years. Marriage goes through phases. Sometimes people need space to figure things out." Clementine's brow furrowed. "But she used to tell us everything about her day. Now she barely talks to us at dinner when she's even here for dinner." That blow landed harder than I cared to admit. Our family dinners, once a sacred ritual, had become a casualty. Vivian's excuses had grown elaborate. Late yoga classes, dinner plans with unnamed girlfriends, book club meetings seemingly every other night. "I'll talk to your mother," I promised, though the words tasted of uncertainty. That night I waited. Vivian arrived home nearing 11, an anomaly for a Tuesday. "How was book club?" I inquired as she slipped off her heels. A fleeting hesitation then. "Oh, you know how Sarah gets when she starts talking about romance novels. We lost track of time." "Which book are you reading this month?" Another pregnant pause. Something by Nicholas Sparks. I can't remember the exact title." The lie, so casual, so meticulously rehearsed, sent a shiver down my spine. Sleep eluded me. Nicholas Sparks, the woman who once dissected Hemingway and engaged in spirited debates about Fitzgerald, could not recall a romance novel title. The following morning, I made a decision, both necessary and profoundly unsettling. I instructed Jenny, my assistant, to reschedule my Brooklyn project site visit. Today I would follow my wife. At precisely 10 o'clock, Vivian announced her itinerary: yoga, then grocery shopping. Her kiss, a perfunctory peck on my cheek, felt mechanical as she departed in her BMW. I waited 5 agonizing minutes before retrieving my truck. Trailing the woman I had loved for 16 years felt like a profound betrayal of every brick we had laid together. But as I watched her car bypass 3 different grocery stores and the yoga studio she claimed to frequent, I knew. The truth in all its brutal clarity was finally emerging. She pulled into the parking lot of Zenith Fitness, an upscale gym I had never heard her mention. Through my windshield, I observed her approach the entrance where a tall, dark-haired man waited. Roman Vale, his name tag declared him a personal trainer. Their greeting was an intimate dance, betraying a familiarity far beyond client and trainer. Her hand lingered on his arm. His smile was too knowing, too tender. As he held the door, his hand brushed the small of her back, a fleeting touch that screamed possession. I remained in that parking lot for 2 agonizing hours, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles blanched. When they finally emerged, they stood close, hushed words exchanged by his motorcycle. She cast a nervous glance around before slipping into her car. That evening, Vivian arrived home laden with grocery bags, tales of a challenging yoga session, and complaints about her instructor's relentless pushing. She described poses and breathing techniques with surprising, almost theatrical detail. Sounds intense, I remarked, watching her unload organic vegetables and an expensive bottle of wine. Oh, Maria always makes us hold those positions forever. I'm exhausted. Maria. At least this time her homework was done. Over dinner, she inquired about my day with the polite, detached interest one might extend to a stranger. Ashton and Clementine picked at their food, the unspoken tension a palpable weight. Mom, can you help me with my history project this weekend? Clementine ventured. Vivian hesitated. I'm out of plans, honey. Maybe Dad can help you instead. What kind of plans? I asked, my voice carefully neutral. Just some spa day thing with the girls. You know, girl time. Another lie, delivered as effortlessly as ordering coffee. 3 days later, the credit card statements arrived, painting a picture that stole my breath. Charges at restaurants I had never frequented, hotels in neighboring cities, extravagant gifts from boutiques that certainly catered to neither the children nor me. I spread the papers across my home office desk, meticulously adding the numbers. In the past 6 months, Vivian had spent nearly $8,000 on what she claimed were personal expenses and girls' trips. The most damning evidence, a charge for 2 nights at the Riverside Resort. The very same weekend she had claimed to be visiting her ailing aunt in Albany. I had even offered to drive her, but she had insisted on time alone with family. I picked up my phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed the resort. Riverside Resort, how can I help you? Hi, I'm trying to confirm a reservation my wife made in March, Vivian Whitmore. Let me check our records. Yes, Mrs. Whitmore, party of 2, premium Lakeview suite. Party of 2. My throat went dry. Can you tell me what name the reservation was under? The primary name was Roman Vale, sir. Mrs. Whitmore was listed as the guest. I hung up without another word. That night, I confronted Vivian directly. She was in our bathroom applying an unfamiliar, expensive face cream. We need to talk, I said, holding up the credit card statement. She glanced at the papers in my hand, and for a fleeting moment, panic flickered in her eyes. Then it vanished, replaced by a hardened defiance. About what? About the Riverside Resort? About Roman? About where you really go when you leave this house? Vivian set down her cream, turning to face me. Darius, you're being paranoid. I told you I needed space to figure things out. Figure what out? How to lie to your husband and kids? How to spend our money on another man? It's not what you think, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Then tell me what it is. Explain why my wife is taking romantic getaways with her personal trainer while lying to our children about where she goes. Vivian's mask finally shattered. You want to know the truth? Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Roman. Yes, we went away together. And you know what? I don't feel guilty about it. The casualness of her admission struck me like a physical blow. I've been stuck in this house for 15 years, raising your children, managing your life, while you built your empire. When was the last time you took me anywhere? When was the last time you made me feel like a woman instead of just a wife and mother? So this is my fault. This is life, Darius. People change. I changed. And maybe it's time you accepted that. 2 days after our searing confrontation, a primal intuition, or perhaps sheer foolishness, compelled me to return home early. Something urged me to witness the truth with my own eyes. I pulled into our driveway at 2 o'clock on a Thursday. Vivian's car was there, along with a black Ducati motorcycle I recognized from the gym parking lot. My chest tightened, but I forced a chilling calm upon myself. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside quietly, my work boots muffled by the hardwood floors I had meticulously installed 5 years prior. The house felt alien, charged with an unsettling energy. Voices drifted from upstairs. Laughter. Her laughter, but a sound I barely recognized, younger, more vibrant than any I had heard from her in years. Each step on the stairs felt like a mile. each ascent a descent into an abyss. The bedroom door stood ajar, and through the narrow gap I saw them, on our bed. Our bed, where we had first known love as newlyweds, where our children had sought refuge during thunderstorms, where I had held Vivian as she grieved her father's passing. Roman sat on the edge, shirtless, while Vivian sat beside him in a silk robe I had never seen, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. She gazed at him with an expression I barely recalled her ever giving me. "He suspects something," she murmured. "Darius has been asking too many questions." "Maybe it's time to tell him," Roman replied, his hand moving to her thigh. "You said yourself, the marriage has been over for years." "It's not that simple. There's money involved, the kids, the business. I need to be strategic about this." Strategic? She spoke of dismantling our family as if it were a mere business transaction. I stood there for perhaps 10 seconds, observing the woman I had loved for 16 years plot my ruin with her lover in our marital bed. Then something within me shifted. Not anger, not even heartbreak, but a cold, absolute clarity. I walked into the room. They both flinched, startled. Vivian scrambled to cover herself, but I barely registered their presence. My gaze fell upon my dresser. I opened the top drawer and retrieved my wedding ring. I had worn it for 16 years. Through arduous construction jobs, through the lean years of building my business, through every pivotal moment of my adult life. I looked at it for a brief instant, then gently placed it on Vivian's vanity table. The small click it made against the glass surface was the loudest sound in the suddenly hushed room. "Darius," Vivian began, but I was already turning away. "The children will be staying with me," I stated without looking back. "Pack whatever you want, but be gone by tonight." I walked out of that room, descended those stairs, and exited the house I had built to nurture a family. Behind me, I heard Vivian's desperate calls, but I did not stop. She had anticipated pleas, a desperate struggle, a dramatic scene. Instead, I simply stood my ground, placed my wedding band down, and walked away, my dignity intact. The children were at Maria's when I returned that evening. I called, asking her to keep them for dinner, feigning a work emergency. It wasn't entirely a lie, my life was certainly an emergency. As I re-entered the house, most of Vivian's possessions were gone, her clothes, her jewelry, even some of the artwork we had chosen together. The silence was different now, not empty, but cleansed. On the kitchen counter, I found a note in her careful handwriting. "Darius, I know you're angry, but please think about what you're doing. We can work through this. The children need both their parents. Don't let your pride destroy our family. V." I read it twice, then crumpled it, tossing it into the trash. Our family was already destroyed. I was simply acknowledging the stark reality. Ashton and Clementine returned around 8, their chatter a balm, their day with Maria recounted in excited bursts. Their voices died when they saw my face. "Dad," Clementine whispered, "where's Mom?" I sat them down at the kitchen table, the very table that had witnessed thousands of family meals, countless homework sessions, and whispered heart-to-heart talks. "Your mother and I are getting divorced," I said, my voice steady, though my heart ached. "She's moved out and she won't be living here anymore." Clementine's eyes welled with tears, but Ashton simply nodded, as if he had been bracing for this moment. "Is it because of that guy at the gym?" Ashton asked bluntly. I looked at my 15-year-old son, a young man forced to grow up far too quickly. "Your mother made choices that broke our marriage," I said, choosing my words with care. "This isn't about you two. You're the best things that ever happened to me, and that will never change." "Where will we live?" Clementine asked, wiping her eyes. "Right here. This is your home. Nothing about your daily routine needs to change." "What about Mom?" she pressed. "You'll still see her. We'll figure out a schedule that works for everyone. But I need you both to understand something. Adults sometimes make mistakes that can't be fixed. This is one of those times." My phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. "The kids need to know this is temporary. Don't turn them against me." I showed the message to Ashton and Clementine. "Is it temporary, Dad?" Clementine asked, a flicker of desperate hope in her voice. I looked at my daughter, this beautiful girl who still clung to the belief that love could conquer all. No, sweetheart, it's not. That night I tucked both children into bed, just as I had when they were small. Clementine cried herself to sleep while Ashton lay awake, staring at the ceiling. "Dad," he called as I was leaving his room. "Yes, son?" "I'm proud of you for not taking her back. She made her choice." Sometimes wisdom emanated from the most unexpected places. The papers arrived by courier on a Tuesday morning, just as Ashton was leaving for school. Official documents from Hartwell and Associates, Vivian's new law firm. I waited until both children were gone before opening the envelope. What I found within turned my blood to ice. Vivian wasn't merely demanding half our assets. She sought primary custody of the children, spousal support, and 60% of Whitmore development. According to her petition, I was an absent father who prioritized work over family. My phone rang immediately. Tom Bradley, my lawyer and an old college friend, sounded grim. "Darius, we need to meet today. Vivian's playing hardball here." An hour later, I sat in Tom's downtown office, reading through the legal demands that threatened to dismantle everything I had painstakingly built. "She's claiming you were emotionally absent," Tom explained. "Says you worked excessive hours and left her to raise the children alone. She's painting herself as the devoted mother who sacrificed her career for the family. That's rich, considering she's been cheating for months while I paid for a nanny. We'll need to prove that. Do you have evidence of the affair?" I produced a folder I had meticulously compiled. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, even photos I had taken of her with Roman at the gym. Tom whistled softly. "This is good, but custody battles are tricky. Courts favor mothers, especially when they can claim financial dependence." "What about the kids? Don't they get a say?" "Ashton's 15. His preference carries weight. Clementine's younger, but judges do consider children's wishes." That evening, I sat with both children after dinner. They needed to comprehend the battle ahead. "Your mother is fighting for custody," I told them directly. "She wants you to live with her primarily, with occasional visits here." Ashton's reaction was immediate. "That's not happening. I'm not leaving this house, and I'm definitely not living with her and that guy." "Ashton," I warned, but he cut me off. "Dad, she chose Roman over us. She left us. Why would any judge think we'd want to live with someone who abandoned her family?" Clementine, though quieter, possessed a resolve equally fierce. "I want to stay with you, Dad. This is our home. Mom can visit if she wants, but I'm not going anywhere. You understand this might get ugly? Your mother's lawyers will ask you questions, maybe try to make me look bad." "Let them try," Ashton said fiercely. "We know who is really here for us." 3 days later, Vivian appeared unannounced during dinner. She looked polished, formidable, as if ready for a high-stakes business meeting. "I need to talk to the children," she announced. "They're eating dinner," I replied calmly. "Darius, don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm their mother." "You're also the woman who abandoned them for another man." Her mask slipped just for a moment. "I didn't abandon anyone. I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I love my children any less." Ashton rose from the table, his young face etched with raw indignation. "Really, Mom? Because it felt like abandonment when you chose your boyfriend over your family." Vivian's face flushed. "You don't understand adult relationships, Ashton." "I understand loyalty," he shot back, his voice unwavering. "And I understand that real parents don't betray their families." The conversation plummeted from there. 2 weeks into the legal proceedings, the court appointed a guardian ad litem to represent the children's interests. Margaret Santos, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, had navigated countless custody battles. She interviewed each of us separately, beginning with the children. I waited anxiously as she spent an hour with Ashton, then another with Clementine. When it was my turn, she wasted no time. "Mr. Whitmore, your children are remarkably mature for their ages. They understand exactly what's happening, and their preferences are very clear." "What do they tell you?" Both want to remain in your primary custody. Ashton was particularly vocal about not wanting to live with his mother's boyfriend. Clementine was more diplomatic but equally firm. Margaret leaned back in her chair. I've reviewed the evidence of your wife's affair, the financial records, everything. But I need to ask, have you ever tried to turn the children against their mother? No. I've told them the truth when they ask direct questions, but I've never badmouthed Vivian or tried to poison them against her. Good, because Ashton told me something interesting. He said his mother called him last week, crying, asking him to testify that you're never home and don't care about family activities. My stomach tightened. What did he say? He told her that lying under oath is perjury, and he wouldn't commit a felony to help her case. I couldn't help but smile. That sounds like Ashton. Your son is wise beyond his years, but Mr. Whitmore, I need to warn you, your wife's attorney is going to attack your work schedule, your business trips, every moment you weren't physically present. They'll argue that success doesn't equal good parenting. What do you recommend? Document everything. Show me your involvement in their lives, school events, sports games, homework help, and prepare yourself for a fight. Your wife isn't going to give up easily. That evening, Vivian called the house directly. Clementine answered, and I could hear both sides of the conversation from the kitchen. Sweetheart, I miss you so much, Vivian was saying. I know this is confusing, but I need you to understand that Daddy's lawyers are trying to keep us apart. Mom, that's not true, Clementine replied, her voice steadier than I expected. Dad's not keeping us from you. You left us. I didn't leave you, honey. I left a bad situation. But I want you to come live with me. We could have so much fun together just as girls. What about Ashton? Well, your brother can visit, of course. There was a long pause. Then Clementine said something that simultaneously broke my heart and filled me with pride. Mom, families don't split up just because it's convenient. If you really wanted us back, you'd fight to keep us all together. But you're only asking for part of us, which means you don't really understand what family means. Vivian's voice turned sharp. Clementine, you're 13 years old. You don't understand. I understand enough. I have to go do homework now. My daughter hung up the phone and walked into the kitchen where I was pretending to read the newspaper. Dad, do I have to visit Mom if the judge says so? Probably, sweetheart, but not overnight if you don't want to. Good, because I don't trust her anymore, and I definitely don't trust her boyfriend. The courtroom felt like a battlefield on the morning of our custody hearing. Vivian sat at the plaintiff's table, impeccably dressed in a conservative navy suit, her hair pulled back in a style that cast her as the perfect suburban mother. Her lawyer, Patricia Hartwell, was infamous for her ruthless tactics in family court. Judge Rebecca Morrison had a reputation for fairness, but also for cutting through manipulation and lies. I prayed that reputation was accurate. Vivian testified first, painting herself as the devoted mother who had sacrificed everything for her family while I had buried myself in the relentless pursuit of wealth. She spoke of missed school events, forgotten birthdays, and children who barely knew their own father. Mr. Whitmore was never present, she stated, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I raised Ashton and Clementine essentially as a single mother while he built his empire. When Tom cross-examined her, he was surgical in his precision. Mrs. Whitmore, you testified that you sacrificed your career for your children. But isn't it true that you spent the last 8 months having an affair while a nanny cared for those same children? I made a mistake in judgment. A mistake that included charging romantic getaways to the family credit card? That's not relevant to my ability to parent. Isn't it? You lied to your children about where you were going, spent their college funds on hotel rooms with your lover, and planned to leave their father while taking half his business. How does that demonstrate good judgment? Vivian's composure began to crumble. Darius was emotionally absent long before Roman appeared in my life. So absent that he attended every parent-teacher conference, every soccer game, every school play. We have documentation, Mrs. Whitmore. When it was my turn to testify, I kept my answers factual and direct. Yes, I worked long hours. Yes, I traveled occasionally for business. But I also coached Ashton's baseball team for 3 years, helped Clementine with her science fair projects, and never missed a major milestone in their lives. The most powerful testimony came from the children themselves. The judge interviewed them privately in her chambers, and when they returned, both looked visibly relieved. Judge Morrison reconvened court after lunch. I have reviewed all evidence and conducted private interviews with both minor children. This case presents a clear contrast between two parents, one who may have been busy but remained committed to his family, and one who chose to prioritize personal desires over family stability. She looked directly at Vivian. Mrs. Whitmore, while I understand that marriages can become difficult, your conduct over the past year demonstrates a pattern of deception and financial irresponsibility that calls into question your judgment as a parent. The ruling was swift and decisive. I received primary custody, with Vivian granted alternate weekends and one evening per week. The property settlement was equally clear. She received 30% of our assets, not the 60% she had demanded. Outside the courthouse, Vivian cornered me one last time. This isn't over, Darius. Those children will resent you for keeping them from their mother. No, I replied calmly. They'll thank me for protecting them from someone who puts her own desires above their well-being. She walked away without another word. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, our lives had settled into a new, unexpected rhythm. Ashton made varsity baseball and was being recruited by colleges. Clementine discovered a latent talent for photography and began a small business, capturing portraits for our neighbors. The house felt different, lighter somehow. We shared family dinners every night, real conversations, free from the suffocating tension that had poisoned our meals for months. The children's friends visited more often, drawn by the peaceful atmosphere. Vivian exercised her visitation rights sporadically. Some weekends she appeared, others she offered flimsy excuses. The children, resilient in their understanding, ceased to expect consistency from her and learned to forge their own plans. Dad, Ashton said one evening as we reviewed his college applications, I need to tell you something. I looked up from the financial aid forms. What's on your mind? I was angry at you for a while, for not fighting harder to save the marriage, for not trying to win Mom back. My chest tightened. And now? Now I realize you saved us. If you'd taken her back, we would have spent years walking on eggshells, wondering when she'd betray us again. You showed us what real strength looks like. 2 weeks later, I was reviewing blueprints for a new project when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Darius, this is Ella Matthews. We met at Clementine's photography exhibition last month. I remembered her, a divorced teacher with a warm smile and intelligent eyes. We talked for an hour about our children, our work, our hopes for the future. Would you like to have dinner sometime? She asked. Nothing fancy, just two adults having a conversation without discussing custody schedules or college applications. I found myself smiling. I liked that very much. That evening, I told the children about my dinner plans. They exchanged knowing glances. It's about time, Dad, Clementine said. You deserve to be happy. Just make sure she's good enough for you, Ashton added with a grin. You've got pretty high standards now. Looking back, I realized that discovering Vivian's betrayal was both the worst and the best thing that had ever happened to our family. It shattered the illusion I had been living in, but it also freed us to build something real, something honest. My children learned that love without respect is a hollow promise, that trust, once broken, demands an extraordinary effort to rebuild, and that sometimes the bravest act is to walk away from someone who fails to value what you bring to their life. As for me, I learned that a man's worth is not measured by his willingness to accept betrayal, but by his strength to demand better. The day I placed my wedding ring on that dresser and walked away was the day I chose dignity over desperation, and in the end, that choice saved us all. Ladies and gentlemen, since you've listened to the end of this story, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments which state you're watching from. Let's see what percentage of elite viewers make it to the end. And please, Kindly turn your attention to the screen after this message. There you'll find a full playlist of thrilling stories, a subscribe button for the channel, and our most captivating story. Click Enjoy and thank you.